Hi guys, this is Mr. Carl, and we're gonna go over your May packet. Some of the stuff you're gonna get. So what you'll get is this package with some black beans, brown paper, and some green paper. And with these tools, glue, scissors, a wiki stick, you could use a pipe cleaner. We're gonna make your ant farm. So this is Mr. Carl's ant farm. We have grass on top. We have our rows of ants going every which way. So I picked ants because it's spring and ants are everywhere, so it felt timely. So let's dive right in. Okay, so you got your bag here, and I would suggest we start with your green piece of paper. So what you're gonna do is we're gonna snip. So again, when we put on our scissors, we're gonna make sure our thumb is in the little hole, our other fingers are in this bigger hole, and we're going to use one hand to hold the paper, and the other hand is just gonna snip. Now that can be pretty challenging. So what I learned from another OT, Miss Raina, is that I have my scissors open just a little bit because we're just gonna snip like that. So I'm gonna have them open just a little bit, and I'm going to wrap my wiki sticks around them so they don't open any farther. This is just a prompt if you need it. If your student is, I don't know, having a little difficulty cutting the right size. So now, even if I pull really hard, I'm only opening it a tiny bit. So this will make snipping a little bit easier. So we put it in there, snip, snip, and we're making grass. So there's no real wrong way to make the grass. Grass is not a perfect thing. You can have big blades of grass, little blades of grass, but they are generally not uniform, so that's okay. So what we're working on is, I don't know if you noticed, but these fingers are translating, fancy word for basically moving the paper down as I cut with this hand. And that's an important skill that we use with writing. Same muscles, same kind of coordination involved in translating the paper down or translating the paper up. We use with our pencil or our pen when we are writing. Okay, part of the reason why we're working on this, not just for the cutting practice, but it carries over into writing as well. So we're gonna keep cutting, lots of little cuts here. And so like I said, grass is not uniform. So what I suggest, you don't want your grass to be all one, you can't even tell they're cut. So I'm going to kind of crinkle them this way. You can work on folding. Folding is a tough concept for most of the students I work with. And then you can flip it over the other way, and you can try and fold it down the other way too. And again, it's grass, so there's no real wrong way to do it. As long as it kind of looks like it's got some texture there, I think our mission was accomplished. So we'll come over here and we'll get our ground. These are ants that live underground. And so I wrote Mr. Carl's ant farm. But if writing is hard, you could use a piece of white paper and you could work on, you could have your student trace connecting dots, ant farm. So one way I would grade this for someone working on writing is I would do the dots directly on the paper. Or you could have them do it on a white piece of paper and you can practice as many times as you want going over it, And then you could cut this out. You could also grade this for your student. You could give them a highlighter to cut on. So I would tell them, cut right there. One hand holds, the other hand cuts. And then we do another line down here. Okay, so we have ant farm. Maybe we'll put that at the bottom. And you could also prompt your student to work on their name. So I did Mr. Carl's ant farm, but you could have your student's name. I'm going to put Mr. Carl again. Mr. Carl's ant farm. So this is vaguely what it would look like before we glue anything down, like so. Or you could write it, right? Okay, so now we'll get into the glue. So I'm gonna use our glue right here. So I'm gonna start off by gluing my grass down. So this is also good activity. Typically we use glue sticks. I don't see teachers often use the white glue, as it's called, anymore, mostly because it's got a texture to it and it's goopy and it gets all over the place. But that is precisely why we're using it here. So we'll just squish it down like that. There's our grass. We'll glue on our ant farm down here. Okay. So if you have a student who is maybe tactily defensive or doesn't like touching glue, this is a good exercise for them, this activity. If that sounds like someone you know, then I would suggest having paper towels nearby or a rag nearby. So that way, in case the glue gets on you, you have somewhere to wipe it or get it off with. Another thing I like to tell kids is if they get a little freaked out that it's on their hands, on my finger, I tell them to rub their hands together really fast for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then like magic, it's gone. So that's another strategy you can use if you're feeling a little flustered with glue on your fingers. So the next step is to glue on our beans that look like ants. But what we're gonna do is, oftentimes it can be challenging to know where to put the glue. So I'm gonna suggest you help your student out by putting down maybe some dots where you could put your glue. This would give your student a path to follow with the glue. And before we start gluing, some other stuff you find when you are looking in the ground, you could find a worm. So maybe we'll draw a worm in there. You could find maybe gold, treasure, jewels, buried treasure, I have no idea. All sorts of stuff lives underground. So you can kind of draw whatever you want on there. I think it's hard to see. There you go, okay. Maybe it'll easier now. So there's my worm. Here's my little path where the glue and the ants will go. But again, you can get creative. I would ask my student questions as far as what they find in the ground, in the dirt. You'd be surprised what answers you come up with. But it's fun. It gives you an excuse and a reason to have to work on drawing something which you as the adult / teacher could outline with dots, and they could connect the dots to form said thing. Well, like, let's say they said gold. Like, so I'd draw a gold coin Always trying to work in the letters, so I put a money symbol in there. And then you can have your student use crayons, markers. We'll go with crayons. Right here. So I have my yellow, gold. Color that in. My gold coin, my worm. This is going to be a red wiggler, so it's going to be a red worm. Color him in. Okay, so there's a couple things we find in the ground, and we will add our glue. So another reason I like this glue is because it requires some grading of pressure. You can't just squeeze it as hard as you possibly can, because glue would come rushing out. It requires us to grade the pressure and move while we're squeezing, so two different actions at the same time. And if you use a little bit too much glue, it's okay. I would suggest erring on the side of too much as opposed to too little glue. And there I got some on my fingers. I do not love the feeling of glue, so I will rub my fingers really fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and magic, it's gone. So next I'm going to use my beans, and I'm going to put them on one at a time. So the reason this is a good OT activity is because it's going to work on our pincer grasp. So you're going to watch me isolate my index finger and my thumb to pick these beans up and drop them on. Like so. Now you don't want your beans touching one another, your ants touching one another, because ants kind of walk in a line. They have a little space between them. So that's kind of how that'll go, like so. But as usual in OT, we're working on bilateral coordination, crossing midline. I have to cross over midline to get my bean. Use both hands together. One hand's gonna hold the beans, or if it's too hard, you can just have the beans on the table and then pick them up one at a time. Glue them on. And if you notice you're struggling having your student use just 2 fingers, you can have them hold something with their other fingers. For example, I have a manipulative here. I'm going to have my other 3 fingers hold the manipulative so that only my other index finger and thumb are available to pick up the bean and put it on. All right, so there you go. There's all sorts of different ways to make your ant farm. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions or concerns about this. Yeah, we'll see you in the next video.